Humanity had always felt the pull of the stars. Across 3 centuries, they answered that call by building ships and outposts, founding colonies, and establishing trade lanes. But they answered with something the galaxy rarely saw: peace. By the year 2847, humans were regarded throughout known space as a quiet people. They stayed to themselves, dealt honestly, and settled disputes through dialogue rather than violence. To many alien civilizations, this looked like frailty. To the Valorian Empire, it looked like opportunity. The Valorian Empire spanned 12,000 star systems and had ruled through conquest for 10,000 years. Their war fleets cast shadows over 100 worlds, and their armies had crushed uprisings on countless planets, whose names had long since faded from memory. To them, humans were simply another minor species destined to submit or be destroyed. General Amara Okonkwo stood at the viewport of the diplomatic ship Olive Branch, watching streaks of starlight rush past. At 63, her hair had long since silvered, and her dark skin bore the marks of age like rings on an old tree. Yet her gaze remained piercing. Eyes that had once directed entire fleets now searched for something harder to achieve than victory: mutual understanding. Behind her, 2 colleagues reviewed data pads, speaking softly. General Lin Mayweather moved with careful precision. She had engineered the stealth technology that rendered human vessels invisible to hostile scanners, spending 4 decades preparing for dangers that, until now, had never come. She hoped her creations would remain unused forever. General Elena Vasquez, the youngest at 58, stood tall with broad shoulders and an easy smile that had won the devotion of countless troops. She had led the reconstruction of Mars following its great collapse, fed millions, and mended wounds no politician could touch. The people of the solar system adored her, as if she were everyone's grandmother. These 3 women were living legends, the greatest military strategists humanity had ever produced, and each had chosen the path of diplomacy instead of war. "The Valorians have verified our flight path," Lin said, eyes fixed on her tablet. "They're permitting us to dock at Primark Station." "Permitting us," Elena echoed with a soft laugh. As if it were a gift, Amara turned from the window. "To them it is. The Emperor thinks he's doing us a favor simply by agreeing to meet." "Then why did he agree at all?" Lin asked. "Curiosity. Arrogance. Possibly both." Amara moved toward the holographic table where a star map hovered in light. The Kepler frontier glowed at the boundary between human blue and Valorian crimson. "He wants to see what sort of creatures would dare request equal terms from his empire." The Kepler frontier had remained neutral for 50 years, valuable for its minerals and strategic position, valuable enough to spark conflict. Humanity had offered a straightforward compromise. The Valorians would work the outer systems, humans the inner ones, with trade benefiting everyone. It was fair. It was sensible. And Amara knew the Emperor would despise it. The Olive Branch reached Primark Station 3 days later. The station stood as a testament to Valorian dominance, larger than most moons, armed to the teeth, alive with military traffic. Beside its massive warships, human vessels looked like toys. Ambassador Chen Wei greeted the generals at the airlock. A slender man with anxious eyes, he had devoted his career to bridging the gap between species. Today his worry ran deeper than usual. "The Emperor has changed the location," he murmured, walking beside Amara. "We were meant to meet in the diplomatic quarter. Now he wants us in the Grand Throne Hall. He wants spectators," Amara said at once. "Witnesses to whatever he's planning. Should we decline?" She considered it briefly. Lin and Elena exchanged a glance, but nothing. They trusted her judgment completely. "No," Amara decided. "We came to talk. We'll talk wherever he chooses. But keep the ship prepared." The Grand Throne Hall lived up to its name, an immense chamber of dark stone and golden light. its pillars rising like the ribs of giants, banners proclaiming 10,000 years of conquest. At the far end, upon a throne carved from a single asteroid, sat Emperor Zalran. He carried the menace of a predator, scales shifting between violet and black, cold yellow eyes, 4 arms resting on the throne's edges, each hand tipped with claws capable of tearing steel. He had ruled for 3 centuries and intended to rule for 3 more. Hundreds of Valorian nobles filled the hall, watching the humans approach with looks ranging from curiosity to disdain. Armored guards lined every wall, their weapons on full display. The 3 generals walked forward without hesitation. They had faced death before and sent others into its path. This was simply another dangerous room, and they had spent lifetimes in such places. Humans. The Emperor spat the word as though it disgusted him. You come to my station and ask for my territory. You speak of sharing as though we were equals. He leaned forward. Give me one reason I shouldn't simply take what I want. Amara stepped forward, her tone level. Because taking demands effort, your majesty, while sharing demands only wisdom. The Kepler frontier is vast enough for both our peoples. War would cost you fleets and soldiers. Peace would cost you nothing. Peace. The Emperor's laughter rolled through the hall, and his court joined him. You speak of peace because you are weak. Your species cowers in its corner of the galaxy and calls it a decision. But we both know the truth. You are prey pretending to be predators. Elena spoke next, gentle yet firm. We are not prey, your majesty. We simply choose not to hunt. Choice. His laughter died instantly. His yellow eyes narrowed. You have no choice. Only the illusion of one. Let me demonstrate what happens to those who forget their place. He lifted a clawed hand. The guards did not move toward the generals, they moved around them, forming a ring of weapons and menace. You entered Valorian territory under false pretenses, the Emperor announced, his voice booming through the hall. You are spies, saboteurs. Enemies of the Empire. Ambassador Chen stepped forward. Your Majesty, this is unacceptable. These women are protected diplomats under galactic law. Galactic law. The Emperor smiled, and it was far from pleasant. I am galactic law here, and I find them guilty. Lin grabbed Amara's arm. We need to leave, now. But there was no way out. The exits were sealed. The diplomatic vessel sat docked and surrounded. They had walked straight into a trap, and it had closed around them. Amara looked to her companions, to Lin, who had wanted only to protect her people, to Elena, who had healed so many and would leave behind so many grieving hearts. She saw acceptance in their eyes. They had known this outcome was possible. They had come anyway. I'm sorry, Amara whispered. Don't be, Lin answered. We knew the risk. Someone had to try, Elena added. Someone always has to. The Emperor rose. Let this stand as a lesson to all who are watching. The Valorian Empire does not bargain with lesser beings. It does not share, and those who forget this will be reminded. He gave the signal. The guards raised their weapons. In her final moment, General Amara Okonkwo looked straight into the recording devices broadcasting across the galaxy. She wanted humanity to witness this. She wanted them to remember. We came in peace, she said clearly. Remember that we came in peace. The weapons fired. 3 of humanity's finest fell. The Emperor returned to his throne, satisfaction spreading across his face as his nobles cheered and his gods stood rigid. He believed he had taught the galaxy a lesson about Valorian supremacy. He was mistaken. On Earth, deep within a bunker beneath the Himalayas, a gathering of aging admirals and generals watched the execution without a flicker of surprise. They had known Amara, Lin, and Elena trained alongside them, fought beside them, loved them as only comrades can. Admiral James Okonkwo stood at the center, 91 years old, having just watched his daughter die before his eyes. His hands remained steady. His voice did not crack. He turned to face the others, men and women who had spent lifetimes readying for a conflict they'd prayed would never arrive. They had constructed in secrecy. They had strategized in silence. They had hoped humanity's peaceful reputation would be enough. Open the vaults, Admiral Okonkwo ordered. Everyone understood the weight of those words. For 2 centuries, humanity had concealed its true power, choosing peace above all else. That choice had ended the moment the Emperor murdered 3 women who believed a better path existed. Now he would meet the warriors those women had left behind. Deep underground, machines that had slumbered for generations stirred awake. In concealed shipyards scattered across human territory, crews received orders that would change everything. And across 1,000 military bases, soldiers opened their eyes and reached for weapons that had waited far too long. The galaxy had no notion of what was coming. It would find out soon enough. Footage of the execution spread across known space like wildfire. Every species with access to galactic broadcasts watched 3 human women die. Most reacted with pity. Some felt vindicated. A few sensed danger. But no one anticipated what followed. Emperor Zalrun sat in his private quarters, savoring the reaction. Reports poured in from across his territory, his people celebrating, his rivals trembling, other powers sending careful messages of support, wary of provoking the mightiest empire in the galaxy. The humans have withdrawn their ambassador, his chief advisor reported. All their vessels are pulling out of our territory. Of course they are, the Emperor said, swirling a glass of rare wine. They flee. That is what prey does. Should we pursue them? Why bother? They possess nothing we desire. Let them cower in their corner and remember this lesson. Perhaps in 100 years they'll offer proper tribute. The advisor bowed and departed. What the Emperor failed to notice was that human ships weren't retreating in disarray. They moved with exact coordination. Every vessel, every station, every transport pulling back behind a line that appeared to have no strategic value. Or so the Valorians assumed. In the Himalayan bunker, Admiral Okonkwo stood before a wall of monitors, each displaying a different site. Hidden shipyards nestled in asteroid fields, weapon platforms buried beneath dead moons, training grounds carved into frozen worlds. All of them were coming online. Status, he commanded. General Morrison stepped forward, 70 years old, having devoted 50 of those years to this exact moment. Vaults Alpha through Sigma are fully active. Fleet units are gathering at designated points. Combat-ready ships currently total 400,000, expected to double within 72 hours. Another officer added, ground troops number 300 million in cryosleep, now being revived. First wave ready in 6 days. Full deployment within 2 weeks. Supply networks are activating across every sector. Munitions plants are online. Fuel output is at capacity. Medical vessels stand ready. Admiral Okonkwo nodded slowly. 2 centuries of secret preparation. Every government since first contact with alien life had contributed to this effort. Every leader had reinforced the vaults, hoping they would never be needed. That hope had died alongside 3 courageous women. What of the contingency protocols? He asked. General Morrison hesitated. Sir, those were built strictly for defense. We never intended to use them offensively. Plans change. The Admiral turned to face his colleagues. The Emperor didn't just kill 3 diplomats. He killed our friends, our family, our future, and he did it in public with pride. If we fail to respond, every species in the galaxy will learn that humans can be slaughtered without consequence. Silence gripped the room. I'm not calling for vengeance, he continued. Vengeance is petty. Vengeance is personal. What I'm calling for is justice, not only for Amara, Lynn, and Elena, but for every species living under Valorian brutality, every world they've crushed, every civilization forced to kneel because it had no other option. He walked to the display. where the galaxy glowed blue and red. We're going to give them a choice. We're going to dismantle the Valorian Empire so thoroughly it can never again threaten anyone. And when it's finished, we'll show the galaxy what humanity truly stands for. Which is, Morrison asked. The Admiral's smile was grim. Peace. Not the peace born of fear, the peace born of freedom. The Earth Parliament convened an emergency session that night. Debate lasted a mere 12 minutes. When the vote came, every representative from every nation and colony voted the same way, unanimous, without hesitation. Humanity was going to war. Across human territory, families gathered around screens to hear their leaders explain what lay ahead. Parents held children too young to understand. Veterans reached for uniforms they never expected to wear again. Young people raised in peacetime suddenly faced a future defined by conflict. Yet other reactions emerged too. In every city and station, crowds gathered to honor the fallen generals. Their images appeared on buildings and monuments. Their names were spoken like prayers. They had died for peace. Now their people would fight in their honor. On Mars, Elena Vasquez's family opened their home to reporters for the first time. Her son, now elderly himself, spoke with quiet dignity. "My mother spent her life healing," he said. "She believed our greatest strength was compassion. She wouldn't have wanted this war, but she would have understood why it happened." In Beijing, Lin Meihua's grandchildren reviewed recordings, her work stealth systems, planet-breaking weapons, all of it locked away because she believed in a brighter future. "Grandmother always said power meant nothing without wisdom," her eldest grandchild told reporters. "She had the ability to make humanity the deadliest species in the galaxy. She chose not to use it. The Emperor took that choice from her." In Lagos, Amaro Conquo's extended family gathered in the house where she grew up. Her father was absent, preparing for war, but her sisters, cousins, nieces, and nephews shared memories of a woman who wanted nothing more than understanding between species. "She used to say war was easy," her youngest sister recalled. "Any fool can destroy. It takes courage to build, strength to forgive." She went to the Valorians believing even empires could change. She was wrong about them, but not about us. The first hint that something had shifted came 3 days after the execution. Valorian border sensors picked up an anomaly at the edge of their territory, something that could have been a comet, a solar flare, background noise. Operators logged it and moved on. They saw no reason for concern. Human ships had fled. Human space had gone quiet. The prey had gone into hiding. But the anomaly persisted and grew. More disturbances appeared, then dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Admiral Varki commanded the border outpost when the alarms began. A veteran of countless campaigns who had crushed rebellions and subdued worlds, he had never known fear. Now he did. "What am I seeing?" he demanded. His sensor officer's voice trembled. "Ships, Admiral. Human ships emerging from hidden jump points we never detected. They must have built them in secret. How many?" The officer checked his readings 3 times before answering. 400,000 confirmed. More arriving every second. Varki's blood turned cold. The entire Valorian Imperial fleet numbered 50,000 ships. Humanity had brought nearly 10 times that, and the count kept rising. "Notify the Imperial Palace," he ordered. Immediately. The warning reached Emperor Zolran mid-celebration, as he accepted praise for his handling of the human problem. A messenger burst in uninvited, his face pale with terror. "Your Majesty, the humans are coming. Let them come," the Emperor laughed. "We'll crush them as we crushed their diplomats." "Your Majesty, you don't understand." The messenger extended the report. "Their fleet is larger than anything we've ever encountered." "Larger than anything anyone has encountered." The Emperor read it. His laughter faded. The numbers seemed impossible. No species could assemble such a force in secrecy. No civilization could hide such power from Valorian intelligence. Yet the sensors did not lie. "This is an error," he insisted. "It is not an error, Your Majesty," the messenger said. They weren't hiding from war. They were preparing for it, for 200 years. The Emperor rose, his mind cycling through options: alliances, defensive formations, retreat. Every path led to the same conclusion. The Valorian Empire had never faced an enemy like this. "Alert every fleet commander," he ordered. "Full mobilization. Prepare defensive positions." As the messenger departed, the Emperor felt something entirely new after 3 centuries: doubt. Aboard the human flagship Retribution, Admiral Okonkwo watched his fleet drop out of hyperspace. 400,000 vessels, carriers and battleships, destroyers and cruisers, medical and supply ships, the largest military force any species had ever assembled. And this was merely the first wave. Fleet status: all vessels accounted for, Admiral. Weapons online, navigation locked, crews ready. He gazed toward the stars ahead, where the Valorian Empire awaited, where his daughter's killers were still celebrating. They believed they had won. They believed they'd taught humanity its place. They were about to learn otherwise. "Open a channel," he said. "Broadcast on every frequency." "Channel open, sir." Admiral Okonkwo spoke slowly, deliberately, knowing his words would reach every corner of the galaxy. "This is Admiral James Okonkwo of the United Human Fleet. We are not here for conquest. We are not here for territory. We are here because the Valorian Empire murdered 3 women who came in peace. We are here to teach the galaxy that humanity's kindness is a choice, not a weakness." He paused. "To the Valorian Empire, you have 72 hours to hand over everyone responsible for executing our diplomats. If you refuse, we will come for them, and we will not stop until your empire can never threaten anyone again. This is not a negotiation. This is not a warning. This is a promise." He cut the transmission. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had written humanity off as harmless watched in stunned silence. The quiet traders, the soft-spoken diplomats, had hidden their true strength for 2 centuries. That concealment had ended. The war had begun. The 72 hours passed without a Valorian response. Emperor Zalran refused to surrender anyone, refused to apologize, refused to believe humans could pose any real threat. His pride wouldn't allow it. When the deadline lapsed, the human fleet advanced not randomly, not toward population centers, but according to a precise and unsettling plan. Fleet Commander Torvalik was the first to grasp what the humans intended. He commanded the Valorian 4th Fleet, stationed at the Dana shipyards, facilities that had built warships for 6,000 years, the Empire's pride, yet utterly unprepared for what arrived. Human ships appeared without warning. One moment, sensors showed empty space. The next, 300 warships encircled the shipyards. Torvalik had no time to raise shields, arm weapons, or call for reinforcements. But the humans didn't fire immediately. Instead, they broadcast a message. "This is the human fleet to all personnel at Dana shipyards. You have 30 minutes to evacuate civilian workers. Vessels that leave peacefully will not be harmed. Vessels that resist will be destroyed. Your time begins now." Torvalik stared, disbelieving. They were warning him, giving him time. "It's a trick," his first officer insisted. "They want us to lower our guard." "Then why announce it?" Torvalik shook his head. "No, they mean it. They actually mean it." He ordered the evacuation. Workers rushed to transport ships. Families living on the station grabbed what they could and fled. Military personnel prepared for a fight they knew they couldn't win. Exactly 30 minutes later, the human fleet opened fire. The Dana shipyards, standing for 6 millennia, ceased to exist within 7 minutes. Every dock destroyed, every construction bay vaporized, every ship under production reduced to drifting wreckage. Yet every evacuated transport reached safety untouched. The humans had kept their word. This pattern repeated across Valorian space. Shipyards obliterated, workers spared, military bases annihilated, nearby civilian stations left untouched, weapons plants erased, while schools and hospitals a few kilometers away remained standing. The Valorian military couldn't make sense of it. War was supposed to be merciless. Victory was supposed to come from total devastation. Every civilization understood this, but the humans refused to follow those rules. General Caithmar, a veteran of 30 campaigns who had raised civilizations and enslaved populations, was one of the most feared commanders in Valorian history. And he was losing. "They fight like nothing we've ever encountered," he reported to the palace. "Their tactics shift constantly. Their technology surpasses our estimates. Their soldiers show no fear and expect no mercy. Yet they spare civilians. They avoid infrastructure. They're dismantling our military while leaving everything else intact. That is weakness," the emperor snapped. "Exploit it. Place civilians inside military installations. They won't dare strike. We tried that, Your Majesty." They detected the deception and evacuated the civilians, selves sent rescue teams into our own bases to remove the people we used as shields. Then they destroyed the bases anyway. The emperor's scales darkened with rage. "Then what do you propose? That we seek peace while we still have something left to negotiate with?" "Never." Caithmar bowed his head. He had served the empire his entire life without question. Now, for the first time, he wondered if that loyalty had been misplaced. As weeks passed, the human strategy became unmistakable. They weren't trying to conquer the Valorian Empire, they were dismantling its capacity for war permanently. Every shipyard, weapons factory, military academy, and research facility devoted to death was systematically located and destroyed. The Valorian economy buckled. Supply chains collapsed. Commanders who once led mighty fleets found themselves without ships. Soldiers trained for glory found themselves without weapons. And still the humans advanced, relentless, precise, unstoppable. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Okonkwo tracked the campaign with grim resolve. Holographic maps showed the Valorian military's shrinking footprint, smaller with each passing day. Captain Chen approached with a data pad. "Latest casualty reports, sir." Okonkwo reviewed it carefully. Human losses were minimal. The Valorians simply couldn't match human technology or tactics, but minimal wasn't zero. Every name represented someone's child, parent, or friend. "Have the families been notified?" "Yes, sir." "Personal messages from you as requested." "Good." "And the Valorian civilians?" "Humanitarian teams are operating in every liberated sector. Food distribution is underway. Medical aid is reaching anyone who needs it. Refugee camps are established for displaced populations. Any resistance?" "Some. Many Valorians can't understand why we're helping them. Some suspect a trap. Keep helping regardless," Okonkwo said. "Let them see who we truly are." This puzzled the galaxy more than anything else. Humans crippling the Valorian military while feeding Valorian civilians, destroying weapons factories while constructing hospitals, ending an empire's power while preserving its people. A journalist from the Neutral Council managed to interview a human soldier during a brief truce. Young, no older than 25, armor scorched from battle, eyes calm. "How do you fight this hard and still show mercy?" the journalist asked. The soldier considered the question. "We aren't fighting the Valorian people. We're fighting what the Empire represents. The people are victims too. They didn't choose to be born into a civilization built on conquest, ruled by leaders who murder diplomats for sport. But many of them support the Emperor. Some celebrated when your generals were killed. Some did. Many didn't. And even those who celebrated were taught to hate us, taught that we were weak, that strength meant cruelty. We're teaching them something different, that real strength means choosing not to be cruel when you have every reason to be." The interview spread across the galaxy. Species bracing for humans to become the next oppressors watched, confused. This wasn't how empires behaved. This wasn't how conquerors acted. Something was different about these strange beings from a world called Earth. 3 weeks into the war, human forces reached the first of the Empire's 12 core worlds, the heart of Valorian civilization, its oldest colonies, its most vital cities, the Emperor's personal domain. Fleet Admiral Varke, the officer who first detected the human fleet, now defended core world Primus with 50 remaining warships against thousands. Admiral, his communications officer reported, incoming transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared tired and aged, but his voice remained steady. Admiral Varke, I'm extending the same offer given to every Valorian commander. Surrender your forces, evacuate your civilians. We will not harm anyone who doesn't fight. We'll provide humanitarian aid to those who need it. This isn't a trick. This isn't deception. This is simply who we are. Varke studied him. He'd spent his life believing humans were weak, their peace cowardice, their diplomacy desperation. Now he faced a man who had lost his daughter to Valorian cruelty and still offered mercy. Why? Why? Varke asked. We killed your family. We murdered your diplomats. We laughed about it. Why not seek revenge? Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. I want revenge every hour of every day. I dream of it. I wake up hungry for it. My daughter died because your emperor wanted to feel powerful. My friends died because your empire believes strength means cruelty. He paused. But revenge would make me like him. It would prove everything he believed about us was true. My daughter died believing he was wrong. Something shifted in Varke's shame. I'll order the evacuation, he said. My forces will surrender. Thank you, Admiral. Your people will be treated with dignity. The transmission ended. Varke turned to his crew, who watched him with shock and confusion. He understood their entire worldview was collapsing. You heard him, he said. Begin evacuation. All personnel will surrender their weapons peacefully. Sir, his first officer protested. The Emperor will have us executed for treason. Perhaps. Varke looked at his own hands that had destroyed cities, killed millions. But I've served this empire 200 years. I've followed every order, committed every atrocity asked of me, and always told myself it was necessary, that it was strength. I was wrong. The humans are teaching us that strength doesn't require cruelty, that power doesn't require oppression. Perhaps it's time we learned that lesson. The evacuation of Primus took 6 hours. Every civilian who wished to leave received safe passage. Every soldier who surrendered was treated as a prisoner of war, not an enemy to be destroyed. Afterward, human forces destroyed every military installation on the planet, every weapon, every warship, every factory capable of building instruments of death, but the cities remained standing. Hospitals kept running, children kept attending school. The Valorian Empire was dying, but its people would survive. Admiral Okonkwo watched Primus shrink behind him. 1 down, 11 to go. Message from Earth, Chen reported. Parliament wants our timeline. Tell them 2 months. The Emperor will face justice. His empire will be dismantled. And then we go home. He thought of his daughter, her smile, her dreams, everything she believed in. And after that, we rebuild what they tried to destroy. We prove peace is possible. We show the galaxy that humans remember those who wronged us, but we don't become them. He turned from the view screen. Send the fleet to the next core world. Remind everyone why we're here. Not for revenge, for justice. The campaign pressed forward, and across the galaxy, species long terrified of the Valorian Empire began to believe change might truly be possible. The Valorian Empire had endured 10,000 years, conquered 100 species, crushed rebellions on 1,000 worlds. No enemy had ever reached its core. No force had ever threatened the throne until now. Emperor Zaron watched the reports with mounting fury. Core world after core world fell. His fleets scattered, his armies broke. His surviving generals either surrendered or vanished. The greatest empire in galactic history was crumbling like dust. Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Thexa said carefully, the highest-ranking officer still loyal. We must consider negotiation. Negotiation? You want me to beg peace from animals? Not beg, negotiate. The humans' demands are clear surrender, those responsible for the execution, accept demilitarization, face an international tribunal. If we agree now, we preserve something. I would rather burn than kneel to lesser beings. Thexa closed his eyes. He had served the Empire his whole life, believed in its glory, committed terrible acts in its name. Now he watched it die because one ruler's pride outweighed his wisdom. Then we will burn, Your Majesty. But the galaxy will remember we chose death over admitting fault. The Emperor dismissed him. Thexa bowed and left, already sensing what was coming. The other military leaders were exhausted, defeated, and beginning to question whether their emperor still deserved loyalty. 3 days later, the coup began. General Caithmar led it, once the Empire's most feared commander, a destroyer of civilizations without mercy, now transformed after watching humans extend compassion to people he'd taught to expect only cruelty. Something inside him had broken and been rebuilt. The Emperor has led us to ruin, Caithmar told his troops. He murdered diplomats for sport. He started a war we cannot win. He has destroyed everything our ancestors built, because he refused to accept that other species might stand as our equals. His soldiers listened in stunned silence. Warriors raised to believe, questioning the emperor was treason. I'm not asking you to betray the Empire. I'm asking you to save it. The humans don't want to destroy our people, they want to destroy our ability to threaten them. If we remove the Emperor and accept their terms, our children will live, our civilization will survive. We will have a future. Half of his forces joined him, the other half remained loyal to the throne. Civil war erupted across 3 core worlds simultaneously, Valorians fighting Valorians, while human forces watched from orbit, waiting to see which side would prevail. Aboard the Retribution, Admiral Okonkwo monitored events with a heavy heart. He hadn't wanted this. He'd hoped the Emperor would see reason, hoped the Valorians would find their own path to peace. General Caithmar is requesting communication, Chen reported. Put him through. Caithmar appeared, exhausted, uniform torn, eyes clear. Admiral Okonkwo, I offer the unconditional surrender of all forces under my command. We accept your terms. We will deliver the Emperor and every official responsible for the diplomatic murders. I ask only that you help us end this civil war before more of our people die. Okonkwo studied him, a being who had destroyed entire species, ordered massacres, built a career on cruelty, now asking for help. Why? The Admiral asked. Why turn against everything you believed? Caithmar paused. I watched your soldiers feed children taught to hate them. I watched your medics heal enemies who tried to kill them. I watched you destroy our weapons while protecting our hospitals. He shook his head. I spent my life believing strength meant dominance, that power meant cruelty. You showed me another way. We are not saints, General. We've done terrible things in this war. Yes, but you didn't have to show mercy. You didn't have to feed our civilians, treat our prisoners with dignity. You chose to. That choice changed everything. Okonkwo made his decision. Will help end the civil war. But the Emperor must face trial, along with everyone responsible for the murders. Non-negotiable. Agreed. Then welcome to the right side of history, General. Let's finish this together. The final battle for the Valorian throne world lasted 2 days. Human forces worked alongside Caithmar's rebels, neutralizing loyalist positions with precision, evacuating civilians from combat zones, and treating every prisoner with the same dignity shown throughout the war. The Imperial Palace fell on the 2nd day. Admiral Okonkwo led the assault personally, wanting to look into the eyes of the being who had killed his daughter, needing to see this through to its end. The palace stood as a monument to 10,000 years of conquest, its walls lined with trophies from defeated civilizations, its rooms filled with treasures stolen from conquered worlds beautiful and terrible, a temple to pride and cruelty. Emperor Zoran waited alone in his throne room, his dead guards scattered around him. He watched the humans approach without fear. "So," he said as Okonkwo stepped forward, "the prey has become the predator. I suppose you expect me to beg. I expect nothing from you, Emperor. I learned long ago that expecting decency from the indecent leads only to disappointment." The admiral stopped a few meters away. Soldiers spread bed behind him, weapons ready but lowered. This moment was about justice, not violence. "You killed my daughter," Okonkwo said. "You killed two of the finest people humanity has ever produced. You did it to send a message, to feel powerful. Now your empire is gone, your military destroyed, your legacy ash, and now you'll kill me." It wasn't a question. No. His voice was firm. "You'll stand trial before judges from a dozen species. You'll answer for your crimes and face whatever punishment the tribunal decides." The emperor laughed, hollow and bitter. "A trial. You could end me right now. Avenge your precious diplomats with a single command. Why bother with procedure? Why pretend law matters? Because law does matter. Because my daughter believed in justice, not revenge. Because the difference between us and you is that we don't murder people to send messages." Okonkwo turned to his soldiers. "Take him into custody. Treat him with the same dignity we've shown every prisoner. Not because he deserves it, because we do." The soldiers advanced. The emperor didn't resist, perhaps pride, perhaps exhaustion, perhaps some buried understanding that this was the end. As they led him away, he spoke once more. "You think you've won, human. But empires rise and fall. Civilizations come and go. Eventually your species will face the same choice we faced, power or principle. And when that day comes, you'll choose power. Everyone does." Okonkwo watched him disappear through the doors, turning the words over in his mind, thinking of his daughter, of everything humanity had built and everything it could still become. "Maybe," he said quietly. But not today. News of the Emperor's capture spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had lived in fear of the Valorian Empire for millennia watched in astonishment the tyrant defeated, the oppressor brought low, and humanity, strange and unpredictable, had done what no one else could. The real surprise came in the days that followed. Human forces didn't occupy Valorian worlds, install puppet governments, or demand tribute. Instead, they announced that every Valorian world would receive independence, free to choose its own government and build its own future. Humanitarian aid poured into Valorian space, food, medicine, engineers, teachers, everything needed to rebuild, given freely, with nothing demanded in return. The galactic community didn't know what to make of it. This wasn't how conquerors behaved. This wasn't how wars ended. On the former throne world, now renamed New Dawn under its provisional government, Admiral Okonkwo walked its streets alone, in civilian clothes, unarmed, wanting to see what humanity had left behind. The streets bustled with ordinary life people shopping, working, talking. Some stared when they recognized him. Most looked away. A few nodded with something like respect. An elderly Valorian woman approached, her scales faded with age, leaning on a cane, her eyes sharp. "You're the human admiral," she said. "I am. You destroyed my world. You killed my grandson in the fighting." He was loyal to the Emperor. Okonkwo met her gaze without flinching. "I'm sorry for your loss. I lost my daughter to your Emperor. War takes from everyone." She studied him a long moment. "Your soldiers came to my neighborhood during the battle. There was a hospital nearby. We expected them to destroy it. Instead, they protected it, brought supplies, helped evacuate the wounded." Something shifted in her expression. "I've hated humans my entire life. I was taught to from birth. But I've never seen an enemy behave the way your soldiers did. I don't understand you. I may never understand you. But I'm tired of hate. She bowed her head slightly and walked on. Okonkwo watched her go, thinking of all the hatred that had built empires like this one, and of the 3 women who died believing a different future was possible. His communicator buzzed. "Admiral, the tribunal is convening. They need you for opening statements. On my way." He took one last look at the city humans and Valorians clearing debris together, children playing in parks that had been battlefields days earlier. Life was returning. His daughter would have loved this, would have seen it as proof sacrifice meant something, that peace was possible even after war, that enemies could become something else entirely. He walked toward the tribunal building. The trial would begin soon. The Emperor would answer for his crimes, and humanity would show the galaxy that justice didn't require cruelty. The war was ending, but the real work was only beginning. The tribunal lasted 47 days. Witnesses from 100 worlds testified. Evidence was presented, arguments made. Emperor Zalron sat through every session, silent and proud, refusing to defend himself or express any regret. The verdict surprised no one. Guilty on every charge: war crimes, crimes against sentient beings, murder of diplomatic personnel, genocide, and more. The sentence was life imprisonment on a secured asteroid facility, where he would spend his remaining centuries alone, watching the galaxy he once terrorized learn to live without fear. Many species argued for execution, insisting death was the only fitting punishment. But the human delegation opposed it. Admiral Okonkwo spoke at the sentencing. "Death is easy," he said. "Death is quick. Death is exactly what the Emperor believed in. He killed because it was simple, destroyed because it was efficient. If we execute him, we become what he was. We prove his worldview correct." He looked across the assembled representatives. Let him live. Let him watch everything he built replaced by something better. Let him see that the galaxy doesn't need fear to function, that his entire life was founded on a lie. That is justice. "That is what my daughter would have wanted," the tribunal agreed. The Emperor was led away without a word, perhaps waiting for a rescue that would never arrive, perhaps simply out of things to say. With the trial concluded, the human fleet began withdrawing ship by ship, departing Valorian space, taking nothing, claiming nothing, leaving behind only the aid they'd given and the change they'd inspired. The galaxy watched, disbelieving. Every species knew the usual pattern: conquer, occupy, exploit. Humans had chosen a different path entirely. Returning soldiers received heroes' welcomes on Earth parades, ceremonies, speeches, monuments, though the celebrations carried a somber undertone. Everyone remembered the cost. Everyone remembered the 3 women whose deaths had made this war necessary. Admiral Okonkwo declined every invitation to celebrate, traveling instead to the memorial built where the executions occurred. The planet, now independent and governed by Valorians who'd chosen a new direction, had invited him to see what they had built. The memorial was simple: 3 white pillars, each bearing the name and likeness of a fallen general, surrounded by a garden where flowers from Earth and Valorian worlds grew together, tended by humans and Valorians side by side. Okonkwo stood before the pillar, bearing his daughter's face. Amara Okonkwo, general, diplomat, dreamer, inscribed with words from her final message: "We came in peace. Remember that we came in peace." He stood there a long while, remembering her childhood, her first steps, her first words, her laughter, her tears at injustice, the woman she became, the lives she touched, the future she believed in. "I did what I could," he said softly. "I hope it was enough." A voice answered behind him. It was more than enough. He turned. A young Valorian woman stood there in civilian dress, cradling a small child, her eyes wet with tears. "My grandfather served under Emperor Zalron," she said. "He was one of the guards who carried out the execution." He killed your daughter. Okonkwo felt his chest tighten, old grief and anger rushing back. She continued, he died in the Civil War, fighting against the emperor he'd once served. He left me a message. He said he'd done terrible things, that he'd been taught cruelty was strength, that he was wrong. She stepped closer. The child in her arms watched the admiral with curious eyes. He asked me to find you, to tell you he was sorry, that he understood too late what daughter was trying to do, that he wished he'd listened instead of following orders. Okonkwo looked at the child, innocent and unaware, born into a galaxy transformed, because 3 women died and 1 old man chose justice over revenge. What's her name? He asked. Amara. The young woman smiled through her tears. I named her after your daughter. I want her to grow up knowing peace is possible, that enemies can become friends, that the old ways don't have to remain our ways. Something inside the admiral broke free, something that held him together through months of war, loss, and grief. He wept for the first time since his daughter's death, allowing himself to fully grieve. The young woman waited quietly. The child reached out a small hand, and he took it gently. Your daughter is beautiful, he said. I hope she lives a long and happy life. She will, the woman said, because of what you did. Because of what your people showed us. They stood together in the garden, human and Valorian, former enemies discovering something new, flowers from 2 worlds blooming in the same soil. 6 months later, a new diplomatic mission launched from Earth, bound for a newly discovered species on the far side of the galaxy, led by young officers who had joined the diplomatic corps because of the 3 fallen generals, believing, as Amara, Lin, and Elena had believed, that peace was possible, an understanding worth dying for. The send-off ceremony took place at the Earth Memorial for the 3 generals. Thousands attended, veterans of the Valorian War standing beside civilians who'd never known conflict, children too young to remember the executions listening to stories of women they would never meet. Admiral Okonkwo, now retired at 100 years old, gave the farewell address. His hands trembled, his voice was soft, but his words carried across the silent crowd. 3 years ago, we lost 3 remarkable women. They approached an enemy with open hands and were murdered for their trust. We answered with war. We broke an empire, we freed 100 worlds, and then we did something that surprised everyone, including ourselves. He paused, scanning the faces before him. We went home. We didn't become what we destroyed. We didn't seize what we'd won. We proved that humanity's strength never lived in our weapons or our ships. It lived in our choice to use them only when necessary and to set them down when we could. He turned to the young diplomats preparing to carry humanity's message to the stars. You're going to meet beings who've never heard of Earth, who nothing of the Valorian War, nothing of what we're capable of. You will decide how they see us. You will choose what story they hear. His eyes drifted to the portraits of the 3 generals above the ceremony. Make them proud. Show the galaxy who we truly are. And remember, the most dangerous warriors are those who hate war the most, because when we fight for something worth fighting for. And when we win, we prove that victory doesn't require becoming monsters. The diplomats boarded their ship. The engines ignited. The vessel rose and vanished. Among the stars, another mission of peace, another chance to prove the galaxy could be better. On a quiet street in New Dawn, the former Valorian throne world, a grandmother walked with her granddaughter, a girl of 7 who had grown up in a world where humans and Valorians worked side by side, shared meals and traded stories, where the war was fading into history. Grandmother, the child asked, why did the humans fight us? The old woman thought carefully. She had once been a noble of the empire, had celebrated when the human generals were executed, had watched everything she believed in collapse. They fought us because we hurt them, she said. We killed people they loved. We thought that made us strong. We thought it would frighten them. Were they frightened? No, they were angry. But they were also sad. They didn't want to fight, they wanted to talk, to become friends. We were the ones who refused. The child frowned. Then why did they help us after they won? Why give us food and medicine? Why let us choose our own leaders? The grandmother smiled. It had taken her years to understand the answer, years of watching humans work beside her people, years of witnessing mercy where she expected cruelty. Because they wanted us to become better, she said. They didn't want to rule us. They wanted us to rule ourselves. They believed that if they showed us kindness, we would learn to show kindness to others. Did it work? The old woman looked around at the shops, the homes, the schools, the children playing without fear of future the old empire never would have permitted. Yes, she said. I believe it did. They walked on as the sun set over a world once the heart of tyranny, now becoming something else entirely, something made possible. Because humans chose justice over revenge, proved that strength never required cruelty, and showed that the most powerful force in the galaxy was never a weapon or a fleet, but a choice. Somewhere among the stars, three women smiled. Their dream was becoming reality, one world at a time, one choice at a time, forever. The galaxy would remember humanity not for the war they won, but for the peace they gave. Because when they had every reason to hate, they chose hope instead, and that choice changed everything. That was humanity. That was who they truly were, and the galaxy was better for having known them.